Yo, good morning. Welcome, everybody. 7 o'clock in the morning on a new week. It's a Monday, and we're going to have a fantastic week. And guess what? It is another day that is fueled by Jocko Go. I'm still waiting for my sponsorship. I'm drinking orange today, Afterburner Orange. Still Real Energy Zero Crash. It's great. It's really good. Tastes like orange juice. It tastes like a mimosa without the alcohol. So yeah, Jocko, go get some. All right. Yep. Now that we got that fake sponsorship out of the way, what's fueling my energy this morning? We're gonna hop on into the charts this week. Yeah. No news events today. I mean, you have the New Zealand bank holiday and a Australian dollar bank holiday. I don't trade either of those pairs, so I don't really care where I get those currencies. So, no red folder events on the books. Clear skies ahead. So, with that being said, let's take a look at the charts. I guess we'll start with our bastard child, the dollar. I still don't know what's holding the dollar up, but I'm waiting for this thing just to fall through the floor. Weekly chart last week closed just neutral. Nowhere really. Left the upper wick, closed pretty weak as a bullish candlestick. Closed right above 101.5. It seems like what price wants to do is you had this nice bearish push to the downside here, bearish push, found support at 101.5, had this support, and then it seems like, can we pull out my fancy dancy drawing tool here? This is one of those weeks where it just seems like price just wants to go like this and then go off to the downside on a weekly chart, because after I see these type of candlesticks form, that's when you typically get then a strong push to the downside. So I'd like to see a just nasty drop in the dollar. It's about time for the dollar to do something, right? I mean, it's just about time. But let's just take a look. Instead of anticipating, let's take a look at technicals and see what we're looking at. So 101.5 is going to be the area to watch. It's been the area to watch back in January, back in April, and so 101.5 is going to be the area. If we break through 101.5, that's going to be some selling pressure, looking for straight sells. However, as we are sitting here, finding some support above this zone, looking for potential buys. You're seeing a drop through the lows of the session. Big retest, higher low, continuation of the upside. So looking for a continuation up from here. So looking at the Asian session, looking at the Asian session volume profile here. Really? Okay, well, not looking at the Asian session volume profile because the dollars don't want to show it to me. Forgot I can't actually pull it up on the Dixie. Anyways, I'm looking for support to be found. Plain and simple. What's going on, Jack? Welcome. Taking a look at the indices. So this is a tough one, right? Because it's really going to depend on what the sentiment is out there right now. Looking at overall structure, starting the weekly chart, we closed bearish last week, right at this area where we've seen a lot of bearish rejection prior. However, you do see a lot of bearish, or I guess bullish rejection here as well, on the downside. So we're just kind of in this range where we had all of this just disgusting price action. Sitting at the daily resistance, creating these lower highs. Setting this channel, bearish channel here. So technically, I would like to see some sells from here. Looking at the 4-hour chart, or let's just go right to the 1-hour chart. We broke through lows. So after breaking through these highs, we broke through these lows. So now we're pushing bearish, right? We're in bearish territory here as far as technicals go. And so really anywhere below 33,840, anywhere below this area right here, I'm looking for sells. It's just simple. You have break a structure to the downside, and so now we're just accumulating in this area here. Whoops. We're accumulating this area to then potentially find a move one way or the other, and in this zone is going to be potential sells. So looking at price action intraday here, weekly opened right up here. Did it leave no upper wick? Yeah, it left no upper wick at all. If you look at the daily chart, we just have 3 straight rejection wicks to the downside. So you're most likely going to get a push through this high here at some point today to give us an upper wick on the weekly chart. We started out pushing right through these lows, grabbed some liquidity here, and we're now pushing higher. So looking for a continuation this morning in the indices. But I don't trade these until like at least 8:30, so I'm not really going to mess with this, and we'll see what happens. If we do end up pushing up into 33,840, this zone, by the time we reach 8:30, 9 o'clock, then I will look to see if we get some similar rejection in this area, like price prior. If we can get that rejection, then we'll look for potential sells pushing back down. Overnight session, the Asian session volume, not much volume. You can see through the profiles here. You have the point of control sitting right at rejection point 33,700, and you have really just a no volume, like a very, very low volume node right below it. So kind of expect price to just reject and bounce off this low volume node to continue higher into the weekly open and push through. So I'd expect something like this for the Dow this morning, and then we'll look to potentially look for sells at this rejection point. I'm not going to buy at this rejection point. Only way I'd buy is if we actually broke through, these highs here, and we just, maybe found some support to rally. That's the only way I'd look for buys. Otherwise, I'm looking for sells against this resistance here. US 500, the S&P. Jack started his first 10K challenge today. Awesome, dude. Congrats. I hope that goes well for you. Weekly chart on the S&P running into some resistance here. Closed bearish against it. Daily chart showing the very similar price action, but we are showing some rejection wicks again, similar to the Dow, showing some rejection wicks to the downside here. So we might get a potential lift today as we find support at the structure point. 1 hour chart. So I mean, technically speaking, we're broken structure to the downside. I mean, technically speaking, the most recent swing low was sitting right here, and we now had price break below it, creating this bearish structure. And so, looking for sells. We have a wedge forming, right? We have this wedge forming here. And I would like to see if this forms some resistance to then push back down to support and then potentially break to the downside. If S&P breaks through 30 or 41.35, that's the signal where I'll start looking for potential longs for the day. because then we had broken this trend line, had broken this prior high, this retest the trend line, and then potentially get a rally to the upside. So we're either going to look for buys above 41.35 or sells against this trend line, this resistance, for a pushback to the downside. Fixed range volume profile assumes probably right around the same. Yeah, so going down to our time for very low volume, obviously, of Asian session. I mean, just opened, so I wouldn't expect too much weight into this price action. Looking at US 100 NASDAQ on the weekly chart. Let's get rid of all this bullshit. Sitting this range here. This area had a lot of rejection wicks. To the upside, to the downside here. If you bring that over, that's where we're just sitting. So it's no surprise we're finding some resistance here. Daily chart sitting on top of support, sitting underneath resistance, ranging, looking left. Yeah, I mean, clear rejection area. Just in a nasty range. Not really a great place to trade the NASDAQ. Looks similar to S&P, where we have this wedge forming. It's more or less like a descending channel at the moment. I mean, not really a huge wedge because we don't have a clear flat bottom. I don't really like the NASDAQ at all in this range. It's just very, very choppy. It's just tough to trade when it has no, like, it's just not my trading style. If you're a scalper, know how to, and like these kind of trading, good for you, but this is just not good price action. It just doesn't have a directional bias to it, and it's just chopping around with no clear levels and doesn't respect much. So, I mean, you have clear points of control in the range. Like, you have your 13,090 point of control where you have a lot of rejection points. But where we're sitting at the moment doesn't really have any clear areas of interest or rejection because you have lows sitting down at 12,840. You have lows sitting at 12,960. You have lows sitting at 12,940, 12,914. You know, so there's lows just randomly scattered in this area here. Not really one specific price point. So I'm not really going to trade. I'm not interested in trading the NASDAQ in this range. Maybe I'd trade it as we approach the point of control up in this 13,100 area. That's when I'd probably consider trading it. Otherwise, right now at the moment, I'll consider either the S&P or the Dow. Moving on to gold. Taking a look at the weekly chart. Let's delete these drawings and start fresh here. Sitting here at a potential top, right? Triple top, where we've had this 20,050 rejection. Left this big doji, spinning top, whatever you want to call it, and then a bearish engulfing following from last week. So we're clearly seeing some rejection at this area, and every time we reject this area, we see some pretty strong selling pressure, right? So potentially having a strong selling pressure coming into play. Really, that you're only going to get that if the dollar can actually find support and rally, which fundamentally speaking doesn't make any sense at all. But just looking at technicals right now, because price action pays, right? So looking at the daily chart on gold, zooming in here, we had this strong support resistance at 1995 area, 1992, where we had this rejection to the upside, to the downside, and now Friday is where we closed bearish below these bodies amongst all these wicks where it couldn't do before, right? And so now we're sitting here just more or less neutral for the day. Looking at the 4-hour chart rejection point, still seeing that 1995 area. You saw Friday, this big rejection wick, bearish engulfing the downside, found support here. So sitting right there at support, 1976 area, looking left. Go on the 1-hour chart. Giving us these lower highs. If you look at price action in more detail Friday, 8:30 was when we had the news, so we had this push down over through Asian session, London session into New York session, consolidated, and then we had this big wick to the upside, filling this move, and then closed massive bearish engulfing. So we have a lot of selling pressure anywhere below this area of like 1990. So looking at more detail for the day, sitting at some resistance where we've found this support, this rejection overnight here as well. However, looking at yesterday's price action, so we're currently creating, at the moment, this is the open of the week. So actually where the point of control is where the open of the week is. I know we have a changing characteristics, at least from the overnight session, which is lower in volume, so to no surprise, right? We have now these higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher highs. And so if we find support here at the point of control at 1983, then we're potentially breaking through this flag we're forming at the highs of the week to then break through and retest this, I guess, fill this move from Friday when the market opened and we then had news come out. So this is where I'm looking for a price to potentially push into, which is this 1990 for gold. Because then if you look at the daily chart, 1990, that's also coming back to retest this breakdown area, this rejection point, and then we get that rejection, then potentially roll over if we can confirm that, hey, we're finding some resistance here. So this is the play I'd like to see, is gold break through this flag and push up into 1990. I would entertain sells if we could break through VWAP, break through EMA, break through these lows here. Then I would entertain some sells on a retest, pushing back down towards like 1976. But I'd much prefer the longs up to 1990, and then maybe we'll flip into sells tomorrow or the rest of the week. We'll see. Looking at pound yen on the weekly chart, remove drawings. We're entering an area of just massive rejection, right? A lot of rejection on the weekly chart here. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 weekly candlesticks rejected here and gave us bearish price action following. Daily chart, same story, just more detail, right? Every time you reject here, we get massive sell-offs, right? Massive sell-offs. These are, just so we're entering this area. It's dangerous. Like, you don't want to buy into this area. I mean, just as we're getting closer and closer to this rejection point, it's going to be tough to find a thesis to buy here. You definitely would want to wait for just a confirmation until we get above like 168, 820, even arguably 169. I mean, you have a little bit of a range if you want to try to scalp in this area, but don't overstay your welcome. Looking at the 4-hour chart. 4-hour chart found some support off of this 165.5. Pretty strong dip buy area in the past. And we got a nice rally overnight into it. Filled this move from Thursday and Friday of last week. So looking at intraday price action, I mean, we're running into some heavy resistance. Like, so I'm not going to buy. I mean, I don't want to buy in front of this, right? A lot of rejection here. We're already pretty much sitting there. Looking at the lower time frames, the 10-minute chart, we've been creating this bullish price action, right? Low, high, low, high, low, high. So I would look for potential sells in this area if we broke through any of these lows here, so we could then look for to start rolling over and rejecting this area where we've seen a lot of higher time frame rejection. So right now we're in bullish price action, so I'm not going to just sell up here. But if I can see like a 30-minute, if I can see like a you know, some kind of bearish structure forming here. We already have this doji with bearish engulfing. So if we can consolidate and maybe break these lows, retest, and then push the downside, then I'll entertain them. Point of control for the day, sitting right at 167.093. Pretty strong hourly. So, I mean, if I were to look for longs, I'd entertain them above 167.750. Then looking left, where we could look for that ride, that push to could be... I mean, you have a lot of rejection sitting here at like 167.950. Then you also have a lot more rejection at 168.320. Not enough range for the longs. And if I were to look for longs in between 167.941 to 168.320, I don't know. Just, and we've already ran enough for the day to where, do we really think that Monday with no volume is going to keep riding all the way up here? Not really. So I'm not really interested at all in pound yen longs. I'll gladly miss out on these. So I'll participate in shorts if we get shorts below this prior area of rejection here. That's the only thing I'll entertain on pound yen today. It's gonna be something like this. But unlikely. I will see what happens because I'm looking for gold buys. It kind of seems like there's conflicting charts. I don't know, so maybe we get a consolidated day or whatever, because gold, so typically when you look for gold buys, you'll get, and now this is current market conditions, gold buys, you'll get equity buys, you'll get pound yen buys. So it's gonna be a tough day out there today. My favorite play of the day is definitely gonna be this gold buys on this breakout here. Pound USD sitting here in this consolidation, not going to touch it in this range. So if pound U can break through this support here, I'll look for potential sells. If it can break through resistance, I'll look for longs, but in this range, I'm not touching it. Not worth it. I'll play it outside this range. I'm going to leave it at that. So pound U outside this range, pound Jap. Only going to get set entertain styles below 167.355. Gold looking for a wedge breakout. US30 or US 500. Watching this resistance overhead, or looking for sells. As we start rolling over and creating bearish structure, US30 is heading up towards a weekly high, as expected. So we'll see. We'll see what we get. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Hop off on Zoom and trade with my guys. If you're looking to trade with us live, check out vanttradingforex.com, and you can come trade with us. Have a fantastic and blessed day. I hope you guys make some money today, and I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning. Peace.